All right. Take two. Hell yeah. I got
Oh yeah,
got in front of me a cup of my Yorkshire and a cup of my throat coat slippery elm, which is a crazy name for a tea, but it works.
that's the name of a tea. Throat coat, slippery elm.
Yeah.
It's like mother's milk.
Yeah. Well, you've been on Mother's Milk recently. No, it's like the throat coat tea. It's supposed to help if you have like a sore throat or you're sick or whatever. And I've been congestion maxing the past couple days, so yeah, it's helpful. It's really good. It just says original with slippery elm. Um, I don't know what's so slippery about it, but
Yeah, I don't know how slippery elm is really gonna kind of transition its way into a tea, but just out of morbid curiosity, I'd like to see what an unslippery elm looks, sounds, tastes, and feels like.
probably rough. I would assume a lot of friction. Um, I feel
What's the
like the
fifth
less
one?
slippery you are, the more bitter you would be too.
Smells like. That's the fifth sense.
Yes, this is true.
Mhm.
What do you think unslippery elm smells like?
Dry, crusty, with a hint of sawdust aftertaste, most likely.
True.
I feel like for something to be slippery, it has to be innately fluidous, which contrasting, proof by um, no Uno reverse card. Therefore, something unslippery won't be.
Dude, our fucking banter is electric today. You woke me up early to record this episode.
Motherfucker, it is 11 a.m. You suggested the time.
It's early to me, man.
Nah, I've been waking up at like 8:30 every morning, like a good capitalist
Yeah.
going to his 9 to 5. Holy
Yeah.
shit, I just made the mistake of like dragging my finger along my desk, and I think there's more dust than there is paint.
Hell yeah. We love it.
Mhm. But moving along, what do we got for everybody today?
I'm I'm
What are
so
we looking
glad
at?
you asked. After last week's episode, we realized that we needed to up our game. While we are, of course, divine beings of incredible intellect and charisma, um, walking into the recording booth that is our own two separate desks and just recording random nonsense for 90 minutes isn't going to cut it anymore. So
Mhm.
we've
So we
decided,
decided to pivot, and we're gonna do a true crime podcast now.
yes, completely true. But before that, if I can open up our show notes,
Mhm.
we have two ideas in here, and one of them is we read an entire Gorillaz album? Question
Is
mark.
that is that what we're doing today?
Yeah. Uh, and today's notes are Yeah. And today's notes are there are two wolves inside of you. We do a true crime podcast, but it's just crimes we commit. Hell yeah.
Mhm. So we do illegal things.
Yeah. Well, we've never done anything illegal in our lives, officers, so we don't actually have anything on there. All right, plan. Stick to the plan. Stick to the script. Our banter is electric, but we can't. The audience can't handle it.
Mhm.
What I wanted to talk about today, a couple weeks ago, you presented to me the MMORPG Winecraft, which is built
I did.
inside of Minecraft, and we had a very
It's
nice
pretty cool.
discussion about MMOs and styles of gameplay with sandboxes and mods for games like Minecraft and Terraria, and we had a really wonderful
Mhm.
discussion about that. And we didn't record it. Um,
Nope.
yeah.
The
So
best episode that we had is Lost in the Void.
yeah, best episode so far.
Mhm.
So today, I'm going to steal your spot, and I'm going to talk about a game that I've been playing recently, because I am the
Sure.
most
The
important one.
audio is working for this one, right?
Yeah, I recorded. Um, I recorded a test one, and I confirmed that you are on audio track two. So
Okay. Good.
true,
We
true.
wouldn't want to have to take another visit to the Delaware River with my handy sack of bricks.
Yeah, I already got metal eyes. I can't get more ones. I made that joke last time. God damn it! I'm gonna kill myself. I swear to
Yeah, but
fucking
nobody's
God.
gonna watch the last episode, so it's okay. We can repeat bits.
I mean, if I saw an episode with the title "Goat Milk Reserve Oatmeal Cookie,"
I don't. I think it would depend heavily on what kind of state of mind I was in
yeah,
when I watched
I'm
that.
gonna
But
watch
anyways,
two
so
fucking
tell me
idiots.
about this game. Death Howl.
Yeah, so Death Howl is a video game that I picked up entirely because I thought the thumbnail on the store page looked interesting. Um, I was just
Okay.
looking on GOG for some games, and
David Goggins.
yeah, Mr. Goggins runs GOG.
Mhm.
I saw the thumbnail for this game on like one of the recently updated or added or whatever, and it was called Death Howl, which is an intriguing title, and it had some good art on it, so I picked it up.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I've been playing it recently, and it's a very interesting game, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about it.
Sure. I feel like we should clarify for our users that we are talking about death howl and not as commonly confused a death throw, which is where you thrash and writhe while your body enters rigor mortis after you pass along. This is when um furry free ow ow dog style.
Okay,
Continue.
cool. Anyway, so Death Howl is an indie game. It's on Steam and on GOG, and the demo is free on Steam. So if you want to pick it up and try it out, you can definitely do that. It is made by a team called The Outer Zone. I wasn't able to find too much information about the development of this, besides they also made another game called Mind Scanners, and it describes itself as a let me see if I can find the exact wording here. Yeah, quote, deck building Souls like, which is certainly a combination of words you can use to describe your game. To clarify, I have not. I am aware of deck building games like Inscription and Balatro. I have not played any of them. This is like my first foray into this style of video game. I've played a lot of deck building like board games, but none of those more recent video games. And there's a
Yeah, this
tendency.
guy is a real life nerd, not a digital nerd. He's not cool like the rest of us that play Slay the Spire.
I'm not super familiar with the deck builder aspect of this video game, but I am very familiar with the Souls-like aspect.
Mhm.
When I see the words deck building Souls-like, I get a little agitated, especially because of I mean, Souls-like, rogue-like, and all those descriptors have become like basically fucking meaningless. Souls-like is usually just like a standard Dark Souls clone. But I think what really drew me to this game was it's not 3D. It's this isomorph. Jesus,
Isomorphic?
Jesus fucking Christ! I can't even talk today, man. I don't know what it is when I'm on the. I'm gonna get a drink of water. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry. I apologize.
While he's gone, doing that, I'd like to offer a little bit of insight into kind of who it is that we're talking about, because some of you will probably not know this game, Death Howl, but many of you might be familiar with the studio that published it. Separate from the developers, this is not the people that developed the game, who was the Outer Zone, but the publisher, 11-Bit Studios, are the publisher for the Frostpunk games, being Frostpunk 1886, and Frostpunk 2. I've never played any of the Frostpunk games, but I've definitely heard of them, as opposed to the rest of the seemingly meaningless developer slop that appears on the rest of their
Jesus Christ.
publisher's website.
Fuck.
Okay, he's back. Well, everybody, I hope you're ready to watch and listen to Cube stumble over his words for another 25 minutes while I sit here in agonizing silence reading about the game that he's talking about.
I just instinctively, when I came to sit back down, just stuck my whole ass hand in my mug of tea and knocked it over.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are operating with the highest level of intellect here. Nobody is smarter and or better than us. That's as good as it gets, ladies and gentlemen.
Maybe I'm just cynical, but when I see those combinations of words, especially Souls-like, I'm a little apprehensive because if your first instinct is to describe your video game in terms of another video game, that's not usually, I mean, goes for all media. If your first instinct is to describe the media that you're making as derivative of another piece of media, that's not a great sign sometimes. But
I don't know. I think isn't that kind of like inherent to media in general? Isn't most media described as like a just like a subsidiary of a different piece of media? I mean, nothing's original anymore.
no, 100%. But I'm talking about like the developers going out and saying, "Oh, this is like this other game." Sometimes, if indie games are very open about their inspirations, they're either copying those inspirations very directly or they're just kind of generally shit. Um, Again, that is just my first gut reaction upon seeing it, and it's just because I'm a miserable bastard who doesn't like to have fun.
Yep.
In any case, deck building Souls like is a way to describe your game. I am not super familiar with deck building games.
Yeah, going off of that description makes me think of because like I've played Slay the Spire, which is very like aptly described as a deck building rogue like. Because the whole thing with the game is you start with like a couple of cards and then you do like match after match and you get new cards and stuff. So you build your deck as you go through the run in similar ways to where you like get more items, you get stronger as you go through or run in a different roguelike. And then if you fail, you lose your deck and you have to start in a completely different run with different seed and stuff. And so when I hear deck building Souls, like I kind of equate Souls likes and roguelikes in my head to being kind of similar in the way that the games are designed, where the biggest difference is like in a Souls like instead of like restarting the whole you don't restart. In a Souls like you try again. I think that's kind of like the baseline difference between a Souls-like and a roguelike. Because Souls-likes are traditionally boss rush, multiple attempts, spending a long time on a single thing until eventually you achieve that goal and you can move on to the next difficult goal. You don't necessarily lose any progress when you fail. It prevents you from gaining any progress. So I would imagine this is something similar to Slay the Spire. Um, in that sense, you just don't like restart. You just try again. That's kind of the baseline assumption that I get from that description.
It's interesting. You're really close in some ways and pretty far off in other ones. I would argue that Souls likes and roguelikes are not super similar. I also think that there's not a very well defined way to look at either of them. Like, when I think of Souls likes, I in particular usually think of Dark Souls 1, which also has, Metroidvania styles of exploration, interconnected world, lots of different places you can go, a lot of freedom to the player in where they choose to explore and how they can make their build. But that is something that even the Souls games themselves really haven't done since, I mean, really it's mainly the first half of Dark Souls 1 that does that really intensely.
Have you played Elden Ring at all?
Yes, I've played all of the Souls games.
Okay, so yeah, because Elden Ring does that.
Elden Ring is more open world. The only place that really felt like early Dark Souls to me in Elden Ring was Stormville Castle, where you could have there's a lot of like going back and forth, making your way up like the same tower. It felt very demon. It felt very Demon Souls 1-1 to me, which I think was intentional. Uh, but no, the rest of Elden Ring has a lot of it's an open world and there's a lot of freedom in where you can go in that respect, but it doesn't have that same tight like looping back in on itself level design. And so to me, that's in essence that is part of what Souls like is, but it's not to a lot of other people who are more used to the newer ones, especially like Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, where the gameplay is much faster, less focus on the world exploration, but more focus on, you know, build freedom and being able to do stuff like, Ashes of War and Elden Ring are huge. Honestly, I prefer Dark Souls 3 over Elden Ring in a lot of respects, but one thing that Elden Ring does better is just the general combat, because it gives you the ability to change your Ashes of War and power stance. And honestly, if you just add those two things to Dark Souls 3, and I think it's great. Because I don't like the level design in Elden Ring very much. Anyway, this is a complete sidebar, but the point that I'm trying to make is Souls-like and roguelike are kind of more about vibes than anything else in a lot of the ways that they're implemented. That or Souls-like just means like Lies of P or Lords of the Fallen just means, okay, we're just going to try and make Dark Souls again. And this game is interesting because it does not do that. It's Souls-like in a very literal sense, where it takes stuff like bonfires from Dark Souls, or I guess Sites of Grace, because you only played Elden Ring. Like, that is just a mechanic in this game, which is interesting because a lot of the games that describe themselves as Souls-like, it's hard for them to
No.
copy mechanics without just copying the entirety of Dark Souls. And this game
Yeah.
copies small slices of mechanics while being, completely different. This is a two-dimensional isometric turn-based card game.
Interesting.
Um, but just so a brief description of the game, you do start out with a small deck of cards. So first of all, this game is set in uh, it's like 6000 BC Scandinavia, which is a
Oh, that's awesome.
very interesting setting. Or it has a lot of that, Scandinavian folklore. There are a lot of deer and moose, and it has that nice sort of, I don't know, there's a name for this, I'm certain, but it's got that sort of like kind of creepy, but not overtly hostile vibe to it. Like you're traveling through the spirit world, and a lot of the spirits are animals, but like the toads spit poison and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
there's a lot
like
of
a kind of cryptid type vibe.
yeah, there's a lot of glowing eyed moose and deer and stuff like that. You know,
We love that.
it's that vibe. It's glowing eyed moose vibe. Um, and the idea is
Horror art. I'm looking at the trailer right now, and I'm really liking the art style. I'm a big fan of like pixel art horror because it doesn't it's not necessarily horror in a sense, but it's I guess yeah like one of the user defined tags on Steam is surreal, and I think
yes.
it's difficult um to properly express kind of like an unseelie type unsettling vibe with simpler art forms, and I really like it when pixel art games do it well.
It's very the game that it reminds me most of is actually Hyper Light Drifter. Um, the art style itself is pretty different since this one has much more hard lines and has a much larger scope for the characters compared to that game. But it's kind of
Mhm.
the aspect of you're wandering through this colorful, kind of like surreal landscape of pixel art, and sometimes it'll be completely normal, and sometimes it'll just be like you're fighting basic enemies like pigs and crows and frogs, and it's got that sort of deep dark woods, and then you'll come across a pulsating mass of flesh that's just like there.
Mm-hmm. So yes, so kind of in a similar vein of like 2017 Minecraft mod packs.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, people on the internet will, because that's exactly what you just described.
Cool. Um, no, it's a very good mix of vibes, and I do like the fairy tale aspects to it. Like one of the earliest quests you can get, because this does have separate quests in it. One of the earliest quests you can get is there's a tree that's lit itself on fire, and the reason it's done this is because there's a pretty bluebird that was nesting in its boughs, and then a fox came and scared the bluebird away, and so the tree has lit itself on fire in an attempt to burn the fox, and so you have to try and convince the tree to not do that by finding the bluebird, and it's got a really I like that vibe. I like the fairy tale vibe of it all.
Mhm.
It's a very neat twist to put on this formula because a lot of Souls-like games are, that like dark fantasy, empire in decline, that sort of thing. This is entirely man versus nature, or woman versus nature in this case.
Mhm.
And to get into the story, you are a mother whose son has died and is traveling through the spirit world on his way to the realm of death. And so you're going to try and follow him and bring him back. And that's the basic plot. And I do find it interesting. The son is usually represented as a deer,
Mhm.
and the father is also represented as a deer, but you are a woman who's wearing like antlers on her back. And when you die, the antlers break and reform, which is. I have not completed this game yet, so there may be story stuff that I am unaware of at this point. But
Interesting.
I've enjoyed it enough that I wanted to talk about it now.
Mhm.
You start out with a few basic cards. and the combat is turn-based. It's on a grid. You do all of your moves, and then all the enemies move, so you're always at the top of the initiative order. And when you kill an enemy, you get what's called a death howl. That's the name of the game. And you also get materials, like you get pig snouts, you can pick up branches and sticks and stuff. And so you craft new cards with your death howls and the materials that you pick up. And as you collect more materials, you also unlock extra cards. But the death howls also have another use, because they have, as I said earlier, what are basically bonfires from Dark Souls. They're called sacred groves. There's a few of them per area, and when you rest at them, all the enemies respawn. But the interesting part, and what really makes it unique compared to Dark Souls, I think, is your death howls are essentially your souls, in that they're used as currency, where you're using them to create your cards, but you're also used for level ups, where you can get permanent boosts to your stats. When you rest at a sacred grove in this game, you have to spend your death howls to level up. So if I want to craft stuff, I have to do it before resting. And you have to ration the rests that you take, because they will respawn those enemies. And when you rest, you also spend your death howls. So you have to be very careful with your health, so you're not forced to rest before you need to, in case you want to save up enough death howls to, maybe craft a card that takes 4 of them or something like that. But even if you do, you're always making progress, because the death howls are going towards a level up, no matter what. Even if you're forced to attempt the same fight over and over again, and then go back and rest because you're being really crappy with your health, you still always get something out of it at the end. You can collect a huge amount of souls in Dark Souls, and you're not forced to spend them at any point. In this game, you have to be very careful with your health, because if you're not, then you're going to be forced to rest before you want to.
Interesting. Okay. So if you go into one of these bonfire equivalents and you're trying to save up for something and you don't have enough, it forces you to spend them on something else, or do they just go away?
They go into your pool for the next level up, and it does overfill. So if I have 3 out of 5 towards my next level up, and then I have 4 in my pool, when I rest, I will get 2 of them going into the 3 out of 5. Now I have 5 out of 5, I get a new perk point, and then the remaining 2 will go towards my next level. Turns work where you have essentially action points. You have 5 mana per turn, and you draw a certain number of cards. And you're able to use those cards, but stronger ones cost more mana. You can do some neat combos with them. Like, if you discard a card, most of the time it does nothing. But some cards have what's called a sacrifice effect, where it's like, okay, Sprint is one of the earliest cards you can use. Normally it costs 1 mana to move 1 square on the grid. Sprint moves you 2 squares for just 1 mana. So it's a card you play, but it moves you further. Or, if you don't want to move this turn, there are some cards that allow you to discard, and if you discard a Sprint, you get another card in its place. So you're able to recycle that for something if you don't want to move this turn, because you might be standing on a tile that buffs your outgoing damage or something like that. Once you get a little ways in and you can actually start tailoring your deck, it's very fun to try out different combos and have an idea of like, okay, so I can hurl a rock and discard a card that will give me some defense. And since I have defense now, a card that would normally be expensive but high damage is now cheaper and still as high of damage. And enemies have status effects. Poison is very annoying in this game, from what I've seen so far. They can also weaken you. There's stuff where it's like, okay, if I stand on this swirly tile, I'll take more damage. If I stand on this different colored swirly tile, I will deal more damage. It's a very simple combat system on the face of it, but there is a lot of potential for good combos in there, which I think is also a key part of a Souls-like game, is giving the player lots of freedom to create their own build and customize what they want to do. In this game, you can also use what are called talismans, which are essentially like rings in Dark Souls. You get 4 slots of them, and they each give you, a boost. So one of them is, okay, every turn I draw an extra card that I can use, but that card is going to cost 1 more point. Or, okay, I'm able to, on my first turn, have extra defense, or draw an extra card, or have cheaper cards, or do extra damage, or something like that.
Sure, these kind of sound like the equivalent of relics in Slay the Spire in a sense, where it's these. I'm assuming these talismans are permanent in a
Yes, they
sense.
are permanent and you can swap them out. They enter your
Yep.
inventory.
Hmm.
So I'm completely blind to this genre. I have no idea if this is stuff that is common elsewhere in the genre, but I really appreciate its integration with the, again, Souls-like aspects of resting at the bonfire, having your level up currency also be your new card currency, having to ration and strategize in that way. There are also fun, like, secret areas and stuff like that you can unlock. Like, when I was first playing this, one of the more interesting early encounters was there is an enemy that just has one health and doesn't attack you. And when you kill it, you get to choose between having two cards added to your deck. One of them heals you, and one of them, I think, does more damage. But that's something that doesn't appear anywhere else prior to that point. So there's an enemy that you have to basically waste an action killing, but once you do, you can get an extra bonus for yourself.
Interesting.
Or there are enemies that allow for free movement on other enemies. They'll boost the movement speed of other enemies. They'll make other enemies stronger. They'll make you weaker. And it starts throwing in status effects and stuff like that in there, and it gets really interesting.
Interesting. I do like the focus it has. It sounds like it has on like structuring and maintaining a deck in the same way that you do kind of like a build in a regular Souls like compared to like Slay the Spire and other like rogue-like card building like deck building games, it's very much so a focus on like doing the best you can with what you're given. It doesn't give you a whole lot of room to tailor your build, but at the same time, because of that, it effectively gives you like certain rarely, like sometimes options show up pretty rarely to modify your deck in very specific ways. And if you get enough of those and you're smart with it, you can very, very easily make a very, very powerful deck. There's this concept called just generally known as like infinite combos. Um,
For sure.
in a lot of card games like these that effectively let you do an unlimited amount of things. Like whatever resource that you spend to either draw or play cards, you have like other cards that let you cycle through your entire deck, and then you have an infinite number of these resources. And you can effectively beat any enemy on your first turn. Um, so do you think this like do you think Death Howl has kind of like a similar cheesy esque strategy that you could kind of play into like that?
There are definitely strong strategies, but I feel like, from what I've seen so far, the enemies have been growing with me in a way that feels pretty natural. Um, it's not like, it's not Oblivion scaling where it's like, okay, now this enemy is going to have 50,000 health now that you're level 50 to
Right.
present a fair challenge. It's not like that, but I'm not able to steamroll every encounter. Once you get
Sure,
used to
sure.
certain encounters too and you know how the enemies behave, I'm not sure if there is randomness into how they behave or if it's deterministic based on where you are from them. Because I've attempted some of these fights a few times, and sometimes I can get them to pretty consistently do the same pattern of behavior. But there are still ones, especially with the Elder Spirits, that I have to usually strategize and actually like, okay, try it out, die, think about it a little bit, try it again. There's also the aspect of the Elder Spirits are basically boss fights or mini bosses or what have you. And on the way to them, you need to kill usually some other enemies. So you need to ration your health and make sure you. Because if you have status effects or you've used cards or whatever, that all is gone. That's reset at the end of each battle. But your health
Mhm.
carries over. So you want to win battles on the way with as much health as possible. When you die in this game, you respawn outside of the combat encounter that you died in. All the stuff that you killed is still killed, but you've lost all of your death howls, and you're at the same health that you were before you entered the battle. So it's really forgiving, and you will leave a blood stain on the ground. Wherever you died in that battle, you have to go over and pick them up. But dying is pretty forgiving in this game, so you can re-attempt certain encounters more than once. But it's about getting to a good spot before then, with high enough health. Poison is very strong, I will say that. There was one secret encounter in the first area that I tried over and over again, because if I was out in the open, I kept getting like 7 stacks of poison and just dying it like really quickly.
Eh.
So the best way that I was able to do that was there's a tiny little corner in that area where only one enemy can approach you at a time. And I just backed up in there, scooted out, did some ranged attacks, waited for the enemies to come to me, and then meleeed them. I'm sure there's probably a better, more strategic way you could do that, but that was the way I was able to do it at that point in the game, at that level with those cards. I will say I've done the first, so right now I've done the first area, and I've gotten to the point where I have to find the 4 Lord Souls, or 4 Great Spirits, or whatever the hell. And I'm exploring around the map at this point. So I'm probably like 2 or 3 hours in, and this, according to How Long to Beat, this game has a length of around like 25 hours. So there's seems to be a good amount of content in this game.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not
Especially
bad.
for like an indie game like this, that's a really good amount of content.
Oh, for sure.
I need to see if it holds up, of course, but so far it's been pretty fun. I'm pretty sure the demo is the first forest area
Okay.
that I was in. There's also like extra challenge modes and stuff like that too. So, I think that the story, I mean, the story's all right. You're a mother trying to find her child. The quest log is a little bit weird. I appreciate that there is a quest log. That is something that there are a lot of quests in Souls games, and they're never explained well. I do appreciate that just for convenience. I don't have much to say about the story or the writing at this point because I'm only a little ways in, and it's kind of taken a backseat to the gameplay.
Understandably so. Kind of Souls likes I think have a tendency to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they're making an Elden Ring movie now, and there's
It's
also
crazy.
a Bloodborne movie on the way, which I will say, if you had to make any of the Souls games into movies, Elden Ring and Bloodborne are probably the best bets because
Oh, 100%.
they have the most actual story to them. Um, I have a brief side rant for a minute. I always get a little annoyed. I get a little annoyed when people say that Dark Souls has great lore. Um, no, no,
Why?
it's false.
No?
I mean,
You
I
don't think so?
appreciate that. I think that people conflate cryptic with good sometimes. I mean, I like the story. It's a good. I love the decay of majesty, the whole going through a broken world, etc., thing. But I think that people conflate cryptic with good sometimes because a lot of it is told to you. You're not experiencing it
Sure.
firsthand. You're going through the ashes of a world that's dead, which is fun. I think that this works for the style of game that it is, and you're told most of it through stuff like item descriptions, meeting NPCs, stuff like that. But it's not really like this isn't War and Peace or anything like that. You're not like getting a real story. It's very good environmental storytelling. It's good. I guess you could describe it as world building, but it's not a good story being presented to you.
Yeah, you know what? I think I agree with that. I think I do like the description that the Dark Souls games have a really good world building, but that doesn't necessarily translate to them having like the greatest story. You're not exactly playing through like a great story when you're playing the game.
The Dark Souls games are like if you tried to find out the story of Berserk just by looking at the images. And they're good fucking images, and you can intuit a lot of stuff, but you're not being presented with a story. And I think that I have lots of opinions, not all of
Yes,
them
you
are
do.
good, but I do
Yes, you
have
do.
them.
Nope,
And
they are there.
I would blame the game theoryification. That's a fucking word and a half. I blame the sort of game theory
Is it?
way of looking at it as like, oh, we got to put together this puzzle, etc., as kind of tainting people's perception on the lore. Because especially as
Sure.
I really liked, like Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, like that presentation of the lore. But as time has gone on, and as each of the Dark Souls games are pretty much completely disconnected from each other in terms of story, it's, oh boy, I'm playing a Dark Souls game. I wonder if it's going to be about treading through the ashes of a dead empire and being a nobody who's the last hope to try and fix everything by killing a bunch of gods who were once great or whatever. I wonder if that's going to be the story. It's just,
Yep.
it's just,
Newsflash, that is the entire story.
It's the same fucking story over and over again, and it's a good story, and it works for the game that it is because it's an excuse for why everything is so shitty.
Yes.
It's rare in a Dark Souls game to see NPCs talking to each other, which is something that I don't think I really like appreciated. You don't really think about it, but when you look at it as a whole and you're like, man, there's really just no connective tissue between a lot of this stuff. Like a lot of the quest lines are just like, okay, here's a guy, he's in a different place, you kill a boss and then he dies. And it's like, okay, cool. And it works for the game that it is, but it does take you out of it sometimes when it feels like the world doesn't really exist beyond, okay, I just killed a boss, now things have changed.
Yeah, I think I see what you mean.
The Dark Souls games have fantastic art direction, and the broad strokes of whatever stories they have work for those games. But I would not say they have like a great. I'm not gonna say they're like fucking Bioshock or something like that. They're, as far as video game stories go, you can do way better.
Right.
And the weird ranting point I was trying to make that's been extremely diffused throughout this, is that I think that the it's a puzzle, put it together aspect has made a lot of people think that it's strong. The story is stronger than it is just because it's cryptic and you have to piece it together through item descriptions. And
Right.
this annoys me because I think there's really good threads for a story in it, especially with Elden Ring. I mean, you got fucking G.R.R. Martin to write the background for your game, and you're refusing to tell me about it.
Yeah.
You got the guy who wrote a Game of Thrones to write your game, and you're refusing to tell me what the story is. What the fuck, man?
Well, I don't know. I think that's also kind of like part of the because the story in itself, when you just look at the raw lore when it's already been uncovered by somebody else, isn't super in depth. Like it's good and it's interesting, but there's once you know what's going on, it's not like the
No, it's
craziest
very
thing in the
stock.
world.
It's very
And so I
stock.
think in order to like add that depth that a good story really needs, you have to make it a little bit hard for the users to figure it out. And I also think part of the story is like figuring it out yourself.
I agree that making the user do some of the work can really help the presentation of a story. I don't want. I mean, let me clarify. I don't want it to be a Netflix original movie where they repeat everything that's happening every 3 seconds. I don't want that.
Right. Neither nobody wants that.
But what I'm saying is, you have a really good background for a story, but we're going through it after the story is mostly over. There's not very good characters or NPCs. I mean, there are lots of memorable NPCs, but none of them are really like good characters. They're not real. They exist only to talk to you 3 times and then die. You have a
Pretty
really
much.
good setup and background for this lore, but the actual presentation in game is extremely lackluster. And I think that's what annoys me about it, and why the existence of an Elden Ring and Bloodborne movie really confused me at first. I was like, why do these movies need to exist? With some more stuff that's come out, it seems
Sure.
like they're doing like a pre-Shattering Elden Ring, like a prequel, which
Yes.
is
hmm Which is where all of the actual
it's
plot
where all the
happens.
actual plot happens, and I'm kind of okay. I would prefer it to probably be animated over live action because I think that would suit the style of the games better. But appreciate that because it's going to actually give some depth to this, hopefully. And we actually get to see,
I don't care, man. As long as they make Ronnie hot.
well, she would be in there, but she wouldn't be blue yet.
Yeah, she'd be, like a redhead ginger princess.
Bryce Dallas Howard as Ronnie. Make it happen.
Yes.
Yeah. And Bloodborne, I think, also kind of fits into this because, I don't know, man, I just appreciate the Lovecraft aspects of Bloodborne, but I'm pretty sure nobody knows what that fucking game's about. Um,
Yeah, no.
I think that the integration, especially with Elden Ring, the integration between the DLC and the base game content is also kind of lacking. Like, in Dark Souls 1, if you fought Artorias before fighting Sif, which was really difficult, which, well, it wasn't that difficult to do, but it wasn't something that a lot of players would have done when at the time, you got a different cutscene because you kill the dog's master, and instead of getting the normal cutscene where the dog fights you, the dog smells you and recognizes that. And it's like, oh, that's a cool little bit. And I don't think I might be wrong. I don't think there's any big stuff like that with the Elden Ring DLC, which is weird because it's like got an entirely new character that we've never heard about before and expands on the lore of ones that we've already known
No,
about.
actually, I think you might be right. Now that I think about it, I can't think of any like meaningful instances of stuff you do in the base game that affects anything in the DLC or vice versa.
The Souls lore as a whole is a very pretty looking but very shallow pool.
Uh-huh.
I think that in these kinds of games, aesthetics and presentation do most of the heavy lifting as far as story is concerned.
100%.
I don't think anyone's really denying that, but it is something that I've been thinking about with the
Yeah.
Elden Ring movie getting some more traction.
Uh-huh. I didn't even know it was a thing until I saw like a Reddit post of
I thought it was a joke.
like set, and so did I. Like I did not realize it was real until I did like a little more digging into
I
it.
saw a real life hanging dung eater and I thought it was a bit.
Oh, that's crazy. I haven't seen that.
Anyway, welcome back to Neo-Isomorphism, the podcast where we have uninformed, shitty, but extremely strong opinions about things that don't matter.
Oh yeah.
That's how we get an audience. We gotta just fucking rage bait people.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you think about it, right? This whole discussion about a like a Souls-like card building, like deck building game and relating it to existing Souls-like games is in sense trying to almost discover an isomorphism between the two.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
See, this is the difference between you and I. You make bad bits and you feel bad about them. I lean into it. I'm proud of my insensitivity to bad humor. I strive to make people cringe and writhe under my presence and my power of will.
I do appreciate Death Howl, from what I've played of it so far, because for the simple fact that it is a Souls-like that is not just trying to be Dark Souls, but again. Like, a lot of Souls-like games that come to mind, like Lies of P, Lords of the Fallen, whatever, they're just trying to, I guess Jedi Fallen Order, kind of. They're just trying to be, 3D action hack and slash games with exploration, respawning mechanics, all that stuff. This
Yep.
game takes some very iconic Souls features, like having the currency be for both level ups and enhancing your equipment, having enemies respawn when you rest at a spot, stuff like that. Very Dark Souls stuff, and doing something entirely different with it.
Yes.
And on top of the interesting presentation and the, primitive Scandinavian setting, which is something that I've not really ever seen a game do before, I don't think. It's very unique, and I would highly recommend it. It is $20 right now on Steam and GOG. The demo is on Steam, so I would pick that up and play that if you're interested. And I enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think I downloaded the demo. I think I'm probably going to check it out. But we will see. Yeah, tune in next week if we end up finding. Actually, today
We got about
time
we're
is
about an hour
I don't
in,
know, man.
56
This goes
minutes.
up Wednesday. It's Friday. We got about like 5 days until this episode even goes up. We're going ahead of time because I'm fucking busy all week. So in about like 10 real life days, about no like at least 100 hours before the next episode. From when you're listening to this, probably you can hear us talk about.
That's an
Maybe
awful.
we'll read the Gorillaz album next week. I think. So let us know what you want us to talk about in the comments. Either give us a game, give us a mathematical concept, give us some kind of Russian oligarch that we can analyze the life and activities of.
We might get kicked off of YouTube if we put that one on there, but
I'm
real.
gonna eat his scalp. 100 Nancy scalp. I think you should cut it like in the middle of my rant.
Yeah, we'll
I
see.
think that should be the end
We
of
will
the episode.
continue to have strong and bad opinions about everything. That is the.
No, our opinions are better than most people's on the internet. Let's be so for real. At least we believe in human
Well,
rights.
debatable.
Whoa, whoa.
I've heard enough. Well, I've heard enough of your crypto-fascist musings to be wary of that.
Hey, fascism isn't inherently
And
bad.
that's where we're gonna cut it. Tune in next week to hear more of our dogshit opinions.